Hey up everybody, and welcome back to the Audio Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Ronde van Vlaanderen, one of the big races of the year, especially in the Super Classico. Apologies for not making a video for Get Velogames or Ronde van Vlaanderen. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I was at home and I just didn't really have the ability to record. I had my phone, but I just couldn't really be bothered, to be honest with you. My advice wouldn't have been that useful anyway. I did not see Nielsen Powerless winning Ronde van Vlaanderen. Anyway, let's go take a look at the Ronde van Vlaanderen. We go from Brugge to Oudenaarde, 269 kilometers long. Obviously, if you watched this race before, you'll be very familiar with it. And if you've been watching the races recently, like E3 and stuff, you'll also be very familiar with it. We've got, obviously we enter kind of the Flandrian race with the Ard de Quermont, the Ekenberg, the Wolfenberg, the Molenberg, the Valkenberg, etc., etc. Ard de Quermont-Paterberg combination here with how many kilometers to go is that? Kind of like 50 odd kilometers to go. You generally see that that's where the breakaway points might be decided realistically. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But, the Koppenberg, the Stiekbendrees, the Ard de Quermont, Ard de Kruisberg, and then Ard de Quermont-Paterberg. Taking a look at Velogames, you have Tadej Pogacar and Mathieu van der Poel as the most expensive riders. Realistically, these are going to be some of your race winners. They have won the last 3 editions of this race combined. And it's pretty hard to look past these two in terms of making a team. It's certainly possible to think about sacrificing one of them to try and ease up some budget to get another second tier favourite into your squad. And although I feel like that might work out for you, the way that this race works with the scoring system, where you get, in this race, 60 points per breakaway checkpoint that you're away at, it's likely that Pogacar or Van der Poel, or both of them, will be away with 50 kilometers to go, or, if failing that, it'll at least be, 10 kilometers to go. And that extra 60 points that each of those gives you, which could be, if they go at the 50 kilometers to go mark, that's an extra 180 points, which is really big, which is why it's so important to get these riders who are going off the front. And probably better just to pick both of them. There's absolutely no reason to not pick both of them unless you're thinking of being really clever, which I would warn against, because I feel like these two are just going to be the big players, and I think a lot of people will be picking those. Wout van Aert, oh boy, what happened to you, sir, at Ronde van Vlaanderen? I have no idea. I won't be picking Wout. It's not possible to pick the top these 3 in a team. George has made that pretty obvious. We can't pick all 3 of those. And I wouldn't be picking Wout anyway. I wouldn't be picking Wout over Van der Poel and Pogacar, so therefore I don't think he'll be selected an awful lot. Pedersen, also likewise, you can't pick Pogacar, Van der Poel and Pedersen. Just about. You end up being 4 credits over if you fill out the other slots with 4 credit riders. So if you want Pedersen in, you are going to have to sacrifice Pogacar or Van der Poel. Whichever one you decide to go with, I'll leave that up to you. I think that it's pretty close. It really depends. Maybe those 2 extra credits, you can get somebody else who you really like in there. I think that Pedersen is a likely podium candidate for this race. He's been looking super strong in all the cobbled races, so I think Pedersen is a great choice. It's just a shame that you can't get him on alongside the other 2 big players. So if anybody's got any thoughts on that, be sure to put it in the comments. You got Binny, who's the Binny and Jorgensen are the only 24 credit riders. Binny might come top 10 in a sprint. Jorgensen might, do the same. Maybe not from more of a sprint, but from a solo sort of move. I think that given that Visma Elite Bike, I'm not sure how much faith they have in, just in general in their squad going into this race based upon Ronde van Vlaanderen. They haven't looked that great, and I think that Jorgensen last year he was looking really good, and I think that I'm not sure if he's looking quite as good this year, is my take on it. So I'm not overly confident in picking him. I might honestly favour picking Binny, just because he's actually been looking better and better in terms of sprinting from a small group. And if it comes down to a bit like last year, where there's a group fighting it out for 3rd place or whatever, I certainly think that Binny could be up there fighting for a top 5. So is worthwhile thinking about. But again, you can't put Binny on alongside Van der Poel and Pogacar. You'd be 2 credits over, which is a bit of a shame if you filled out the rest with 4 credit riders. So this is where it gets interesting. You can pick Pogacar, Van der Poel, and then a 22 credit rider and fill out the rest with 4s, and you do hit 100 credits. So this is the realistic area where a lot of people are going to be going. You got Benoot, Ganna, Kung, Madouas, Matthews, Mohoric, Paulus, and Wellens. Who are the best ones of these? Form-wise, you would probably say, Paulus obviously won Ronde van Vlaanderen. He didn't do that following the Visma Lease bike riders. He was in a break, and then they caught up to him. But still, he had to, win the race at the end of the day. And he has come top 10 in this race before. So I wouldn't be writing Paulus off. I think that, I don't think that was a fluke by any chance. But certainly the fact that he didn't go with the attack and was instead caught certainly makes me question just how good he is at this moment in time, and whether one of these other guys might be a bit better. Wellens has the advantage of being able to get assist points on Pogacar, which is quite big, considering that if Poggy wins, Wellens will get 90 points assist point wise. If he finishes second, Wellens gets 60 points, which is quite big when you consider that 90 points can be the difference can launch a rider from finishing 10th place to finishing 6th place, and 60 points could take them from 10th place to 8th stroke 7th place. So it's not, I wouldn't be too quick to just disregard the assist points. I think that Wellens finishing, 8th or 7th in E3 alongside assist points on Pogacar, if you extrapolated that out into Ronde van Vlaanderen, that would actually be quite a good result. The only problem is that Wellens doesn't have a great history of this race. He doesn't usually get very good results here. So that's certainly worthwhile thinking about. Matthews actually would have been second place in this race last year if he hadn't deviated. So he'll probably be hoping for a similar scenario where it's a sprint. And honestly, a bit like Binny, he could be finishing top 10. I think that's quite a safe and realistic place for Matthews to be finishing. Kung, I like as well. He's been looking very strong. He's been on the attack. Apparently his drivetrain was rubbing or something. Something was going on with his drivetrain in Ronde van Vlaanderen, which is why he was expending a lot of energy. And if that's anything to go by, he still did really well. So I think Kung, he's been up there in this race before, 6th and 5th place. So I think that Kung could definitely be a top 10 candidate. And then you got Ganna as well. Van der Poel, Ganna and Pogacar. That was a winning combination in Milano San Remo. Maybe it can be the same here. He's been recently added. He was only down to really do Roubaix. But Ganna is undeniably in good form. That E3 performance finishing in 3rd place was very telling that I think Ganna's a top 10 candidate for this race. Obviously, I wouldn't say he's as good as Pedersen. So therefore, I think it's a top 10 really for me that I'm looking. So yeah, I'd say realistically, Ganna and Kung, Matthews, Paulus and Wellens. Mohoric and Madouas I wouldn't really be going near, and Benoot probably not. It depends how you think the race is going to go. But I think that all of those are good choices. Wellens gives you the extra benefit of the assist points. For 20 credit riders, obviously you've got Pollitt here, who's very much similar to Wellens. He did crash at Ronde van Vlaanderen Road quite badly, so watch out, see how he's going there. Christoph is very consistent in this race for a top 20. It depends which group he kind of falls into, but he usually wins the sprint from those. Sheffield was top 10 in this race last year, although it was very wet last year, very unpredictable. So Sheffield is a bit of a strange one where, yes, he was top 10 last year. Can he repeat that? I think he can. He's obviously looking in fantastic form, but I wonder whether Ineos might decide to go with Ganna instead as their leader, so Sheffield might just be a domestique. I would honestly say that other than those two, Trentin is quite good. He has been very consistent this year, finishing kind of like 10th to 20th in pretty much every one-day race he's been doing. So I think that if you're looking for consistency, Trentin's your man. Stuyven I like because of his potential assist point getting on a Pedersen podium. Plus he has finished in the top 10 in this race 2 times before. He's not a very frequent visitor to the top 10 in this race, is Jasper Stuyven. But that's not to say that this year won't be the year. Plus assist points, he could be a very good choice. And turns is also relatively consistent. In this race he lacks the sprint, which might cost him quite a few places, but turns is pretty consistent. But I would honestly say that Stuyven and Trenton are my favourite ones from this bracket. For 18 credit riders, honestly, my favourite one is Vermeersch. I don't think I'd be going with any of the other ones. They've either just, I wouldn't be going with Bauhaus and Degenkolb. Magnier's been crashing loads. Narvaez hasn't been looking that great. Tiller's haven't seen too much of him. Vermeersch has been top 10 in this race before, and Van der Poel is so strong. Vermeersch could finish 20th and get 90 assist points and finish almost basically the equivalent of a top 10. So if Vermeersch finishes inside the top 10 and assist points, that's really good value. And being 18 credits, he eases up a little bit more budget to put in further down outside of the 4 credits. So I like Vermeersch for this. I would say that, Vermeersch is a very good choice. Probably, form-wise, not as good as Stuyven, because Stuyven was very good at E3. So, yeah, I'd be between Stuyven and Vermeersch, really. I like both of those as other options. 16 credit riders. I like Piffy. I like Turnison. And that's about it. Maybe Lawrence Rex as well. Laz Carno, I would like to give a shout out to. He's going to do well in this race at some point. He was very good last year, but he just hasn't shown the form this year, and I just can't recommend him. I would like to, but I can't. Morgado was top 10 in this race last year, but honestly, outside those first couple of months in the season, he's just kind of dropped off a cliff. I don't know what's happened. Second place finisher last year, Mozzato is here. That's certainly an interesting one to be considering. I don't think it'll be quite like that last again, but he's worthwhile mentioning. I just like Turnison's been very consistent, and I think that he could be a top 20, maybe a top 15. He's got a good sprint. Piffy, he's had a run of bad luck. He's had punctures and crashes, but I think that if he can string it all together, he could be a very, very interesting option for this race. And the other one's just not really for me. I just think you got, Van Aertveld, no. Vandenberg might be top 20. Van Baarle hasn't shown the form. You've just got a lot of guys here who, for me, haven't been showing the form. Well, I don't really want to recommend them. The 14 credit riders, Big Ben, possibly, you could go for, but kind of similar to Sheffield. I think he'll just be domestiquing for Ghana, because I think Ineos will go all in on Ghana as their most realistic choice. Vermeersch for the assist points on Poggy and maybe finishes top 20. Fred Wright is the leader for Bahrain Victorious. They've stated that in their press release. So in theory, Fred Wright is your safest choice out of the 14 credit riders. For 12 credit riders, again, you got a lot of guys who might be domestiques but could finish inside a top 30, like Askey, Bjerg. Ivan Garcia Cortina has been incredibly consistent at finishing between 20th and 30th in this race for the last 4 to 5 years. So maybe, if you're looking for that, then obviously go with him. Honestly, I think he could be quite good for a top 20, dare I say. The other 12 credit riders, I quite like Tim van Dijker. The other ones just aren't really for me. I think that Tim van Dijk has been relatively consistent. I think he was good in E3. And he's obviously, I think him and his twin, Mick, are both decent choices. They're a bit of a risk at 10 credits. But, worthwhile mentioning nonetheless. Other 10 credit riders, Gotalat was good in Dwars door Vlaanderen. Hageners, I think he'll just be a domestique, but for goodness sake, somebody free this man. Josh Tarling as well was top 20 in this race last year, but kind of ditto the same thing for the other Ineos riders. Ploymers possibly, but I think he'll be in for Trenton. So realistically, I like Mick van Dijker and maybe Tarling as well. Would be your best ones. The 8 credit riders, you might be looking at some of these. I think Fedorov be one that a lot of people will overlook. He'll be very good for Roubaix, just FYI. But he's been top 20 in like Brugge de Pau, in E3, and in Gent-Wevelgem. So he's really good at the moment. He's very good from a bit of a sprint, and I think that Fedorov could be a top 20 here for 8 credits. That's really good. Casper Pedersen was very good in E3. You could say that's because him and Aymer de Gent got off the front and then were caught, a bit like Paulus, for example. But Casper Pedersen was super strong in that race. He sprinted at the end to beat Stuyven, I think. And I think that Casper Pedersen could well be the leader for Soudal Quickstep, maybe a top again a top 20 or maybe top 25 realistically. Alex Sagart and Brent Van Moor I both like, maybe a bit more for Roubaix, but they're both worthwhile mentioning for Ronde. They're both pretty good. Well, I'd say Brent Van Moor's a better kind of sprinter from a small group, so maybe he's a little bit better than Sagart, but Sagart was just top 10 in Ronde van Vlaanderen, looked pretty good there. Watson I like as well, as a bit of a sprint reserve for Ineos. You know, realistically he can sit in the wheels and just roll people at the end. It's not a bad shout. The 6 credit riders, obviously the aforementioned Amy de Gent is here. He was 7th in E3. Again, like you say with Casper Pedersen, was that just because he was up the road? Would he have actually been able to do that well? I don't really know, but form is form. He was 7th at E3, I can't deny it. He was very good, so therefore he's worthwhile mentioning again. The other 6 credit riders, there's not loads to be looking at, to be honest with you. You might honestly go with assist points on any of the riders. Your best one is honestly Ian Livens. He has been top 30 in, he was top 10 in Dwars Door. He was top 30 in E3, top 20 in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. I think that he's your best one pretty easily. And other than him, you might go with Edward Plancart for his assist points on Van der Poel. No shame in that. You might get yourself 90 or 60 points from a 6 credit rider. That's honestly not that bad. The other 6 credit riders just honestly aren't that great. Other than the Queel, he is very good at getting in the breakaway. He was in the breakaway for, I want to say it was like Brugge de Pau, Omloop, Nurka Course, and maybe another one. Might have been Gent Velogames. He's a breakaway master, essentially. If he gets to the first breakaway point halfway through the race, he gets 60. If he makes it to 50 kilometers to go, he gets 120. The problem is the breakaway is usually absorbed at about, with this modern day of racing, about 80 to 70 kilometers to go. So I'm not confident in his ability to last that long. Therefore, it might be better to go with Edward Plancart for the assist points. And then the 4 credit riders, which you will likely be needing, I would say go with one of the Picnic Postanel riders. They say in their press release they want to be involved in all parts of the race and they want to be fighting from the start, which basically means we're getting in the breakaway. So Tiemann Rosen and Naberman, there you go. There's 2 that you can put on your list. And other than those 2, if you needed a third, I'd go with just maybe one of the Flanders Barwars guys. So you've got Coleman and Hesters. Yeah, that's probably, Mechelen as well. He's just going to be he's just going to be in the peloton. From what Bahrain Victorious is saying, they say that Mohoric is basically going to be giving him a 101 lesson in how to position in the peloton. So they're not going to do that from a breakaway, are they? And that's probably about it. Maybe Oscar Chamberlain. He's a very tall, big time trialist. Maybe you might go with him. Anyway, this has been a really long preview. This is my team at the moment. Pogacar, Van der Poel, Vermeersch, Timo Rosen, Ian Livens, and Edward Plancart. Can you see what I'm going with here? Can you see who I think is going to win the race? It is a very Alpecin heavy team. I've gone with this just because I want the assist points on Van der Poel. To be honest with you, I like Vermeersch for this race. I could go with Stuyven. I'm very tempted to, because he was very good in E3 and he might get assist points. I would probably then take off Plancart, because I think that Livens finishing top 20 is better than the assist points on Plancart, so I'd probably put him down to a 4, and I would probably just put in Naberman just to really round out the assist point of like the breakaway points. If I was a little bit more risky, I might go with, one of the Barwars guys just to really try and round it out, something like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with my team at the moment. But let me know what you're thinking in the comment sections down below. Apologies for the really long preview. I'm just very excited about it. Let me know who you're going to put on your teams in the comment sections down below. And all that is left to say is to stay safe out there. And I will see you in the next video. Salut.